We talk about capturing the early foot, and that would be medial heel contact, first metatarsal head.
Hi, Bill.
How you doing?
I have a question about chopping, and I looked at your videos, chops for endgame wide and endgame narrow. Some time ago, you put it on Instagram, and
Oh,
I see you're always chopping toward the medial of the knee, the medial side of the
yeah,
knee.
yeah.
So I would like to know, because I see so many people chopping out, and what's your thought process? Is it like more when capturing more relative motion, should I chop inside?
Correct.
Because if I chop out, would I just orient on my lateral foot and I just orient it? All right.
Why are you asking me questions you already know the answers to?
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
No, that's it. So again, you have to decide what the goal is. If we're trying to recapture relative motions, we have to manage things like direction, magnitude, position, etc. Right? So if the force is outside outside of my base of support, okay, that's beyond where I have access to relative motion. Okay, so when we talk about excuse me, we talk about capturing the early foot, and that would be medial heel contact, first metatarsal head. That's where we start to superimpose the internal rotation on the external rotation. So that is a demonstration of relative motions where both of them exist at the same time, right? In that representation.
Yeah.
Okay. If I was to stay on the outside edge of the foot and never capture the medial aspect of that foot, that would be an orientation into external rotation with no internal rotation available.
And if I chop outside and capture my medial contact,
Yeah.
would that promote more yielding on the posterior, or no?
Think about what you're doing. So for you to have a force that you're applying outside the base of support, okay, and pushing off the inside edge of your foot, you would be pushing your body away from the end point. Okay.
Yeah, falling.
So,
right.
well, it's not necessarily falling. It's just that you're propelling yourself away from something. So it'd be like coming out of a cut.
Okay.
Where you would be again reducing the internal rotation. So as you're chopping across, as I'm moving through space, okay, as long as I'm chopping that part of the chop that's within my base of support, I have access to relative motion. Okay, you understand that?
Yeah.
If I continue to go outside, so I'm not chopping this way, I'm pushing my body in the opposite direction. So I'm actually turning away from the weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So if I want internal rotation on the external rotation, I have to stay inside my base of support. If I want to drive a late representation, I can chop outside and then make sure that I'm pushing off the inside edge of my foot, but that's going to be a late representation. It's not going to be the early representation where I'm starting to superimpose the internal rotation. It's going to be the late representation where I'm pushing the internal rotation away.
It would be late on the same side I'm chopping towards?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because it's outside your base of support. So again, it's like hold your hands fixed, right? So put the weight right over your left foot. Right over your left foot.
Yeah.
Put it right over your left foot. Okay. Now, don't move your hands, but put your body in a position where the weight would then be outside of the base of support. No, the other way.
Or like, yeah.
That's what you're doing when you chop outside of your body.
All right. Yeah.
So you're moving towards a late representation, which is fine if that's what you want to do. but you have to recognize the fact that you're not capturing relative motion. You're reducing the relative motion under those circumstances. Okay. So if you're to do instead of the chopping motion, the lifting motion on a diagonal, it's much easier. It's much easier to produce the late representation under those circumstances. It's very easy to see that late representation. But when you chop outside the base of support, okay, it's a lot harder to see it because everybody's looking at the hands. They're not looking at the response of the body to that position.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's two options when you chop outside the base of support. I can go with it. I can turn with it, but understand that turn is just an orientation. I'm just turning my body towards the load. Whereas if I can turn away from the load, which is very difficult to do under that circumstance, it's very difficult. Yeah. I'd be going in the opposite direction, which would be a late representation. But again, the orientation or the movement away are both a loss of relative motion.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Because I saw it as, because if I chop towards the middle of toward my medial heel, I was like seeing as less of a whole axial skeleton rotation. But if I would go out, I see more of a sacrum going there and the whole spine going there.
Exactly. So again, you're describing the orientation exactly as I just did. So you understand. That's good.
Yeah.
That's it. You got it.
But I was seeing like, if I need lower posterior on the left, wouldn't I go out so I get this rotation as well? But I'm losing the relative motions in the pelvis in the process. Right. So but if I would want like a lower thorax expansion, like lower posterior at the back on the left, I could go out, but I should keep in mind
Okay, so let's think about this now. So let's make this useful. If that's what you wanted to do, okay. So if you wanted to turn the chop into a representation of, say, like a middle propulsive representation, what would you want to do in regards to how much bend in your hip, how much bend in your knee, and what foot representation would you want?
I would want 90 at the hip.
So it's you got it. So it's a deeper or lower center of gravity in that chop to capture what you're talking about.
Yeah.